Good evening, friends, and welcome to the latest talks organized by the Bombay Jesuits Media team. And today's talk we are having on the topic COVID-19 facts from science, medicine, and psychology. And we are extremely privileged to have Dr. Roy Pereira, SJ, who was associated with St. Xavier's College, was a vice principal of St. Xavier's College, who holds a doctorate in the interdisciplinary area of chemistry, neuroscience, and philosophy. And at present, he holds the Anna and Donald Waite Endowed Professor Chair at the Creighton University, USA. It's our pleasure, Dr. Roy, to have you with us for this talk. Our mode of proceeding would be uh, Father Roy would present for the initial 45 minutes, and the next 15 minutes would be a time for questions. I would encourage that you write your questions on the chat, which could be sent to Dr. Roy directly so that he would answer at the last 15 minutes. And that would help us also to save time. So I hope and wish that all of us have a good time. So over to you, Roy.
Thank you very much, Father Arun, for organizing things together, as well as Father Joy, who is helping him for today, and the whole Bombay Jesuits media team for inviting me to be on this platform. I think you'll have done a great work in the last couple of weeks, giving us some good videos and speakers. So as Father Arun mentioned, the topic COVID-19, facts from science, medicine, and psychology. This is a two-session program today and tomorrow. So this morning, I would like to first focus on the science part of epidemiology, that is how disease spreads, how it's initiated, and also how do we curb it. And then the second part of today would be dealing also with the psychology part and the whole effect of stress on the body. So my dear friends, a lot of us have been saturated with all sorts of information about COVID-19. So not all of this will be new to you. My endeavor is to systematize the information and, more importantly, to give us tools to plan ahead. While we were optimistic that a minimal period of lockdown would put an end to the virus, that is not exactly how it has played out. And so now we need to prepare for living, at least for some more months, alongside the virus. So as slowly things are opening up in some places, there may be need for stepping out, but with a full realization of what I can do to protect myself. Further, we may need to do some long-term planning also. Hence, this first talk will focus on giving you a little bit of the development curve of past viruses to enable to plan for the future. I'm indebted to Professor John Lai, Professor of Biochemistry, Albert Einstein College of Medicine, whose couple of slides I'll be using to lay out the initial canvas. So we are going to be looking at the last three epidemics, and the difference between an epidemic and a pandemic is, of course, that the pandemic is all over the world. So if we look at the most recent one, which is the SARS-CoV-2, the updated figures for the cases are 5.2 million. So already within the space of about 3-4 weeks, we've gone on to 5.2 million cases and 335,000 deaths. As all of us know, this is basically a transpiratory illness, and it originated in the wet market there in Wuhan. And the earlier virus to this was the Zika virus from 2015 to 2016. There were 811,000 cases worldwide, and the transmission was by mosquitoes. Infected travelers were the agents of transmission, followed by a local spread. And you can see that in the slide here. Okay, so from animal viruses with high host plasticity, it moved then, okay, into the human, and then finally among humans it spread. And then there was also a global spread. And prior to that was the Ebola virus. To 2014 to 2016, 28,000 cases, 11,000 deaths, and transmitted by mucosa, basically an urban spread, initially from the bat to the pangolin, and then into the human system. So the Ebola virus, as you can see, was basically in West Africa, and it spread through a lot of countries, especially the urban areas there. And it was in 2014 that it first broke out. So the spread is through mucosal surfaces. And one of the questions that has still not been solved is that how come that this virus, which normally spreads to mucus, started, okay, in a small rural Central Africa, and then how did it spread to West Africa, okay? So anyway, you have here the cause was basically highly fatal hemorrhagic fever, and the fatality rate was up to 90%. There were 5 strains of it, and advanced countermeasures were later on responsible for putting an end to the virus. We have also heard of the chikungunya virus, okay, and that virus is basically transmitted by 2 mosquitoes, the Aedes aegypti and the Aedes albopictus, and it can cause debilitating and persistent arthritis. So totally, in 2006, there were 1.25 million suspected cases in a multinational outbreak, and in 2030, the first reported case of chikungunya virus was in the Americas, followed by 1.11 suspected cases in 43 countries. Adaptation in the glycoprotein allowing transmission from both types of mosquitoes. So how does the SARS-CoV-2 infect the cells? As you see, and now we have become very familiar with this design. So there is the outer corona surface or the spike surfaces, which then infect the cells. And the receptor for that in a body is AC2. It's a type 1 transmembrane metallocarboxypeptidase. And you see that structure there. So what is the treatments that are possibly going to take place? So all of us have heard of the term antibodies. And so blood is recovered from patients, okay, and then you isolate the plasma, and then you inject it from recovered patients, and then you inject it to treat sick patients, okay. Dr. Liza Ann Pirovsky is also working on this antibody therapy trail, and she is also in the same institute as Professor John Alai. So you first take the blood sample from the recovered patient, okay, the immune cells in the blood, or the B cells, and these cells are then sorted out, okay, for binding to the virus. And then you recover genetic information that encodes the antibody. And then you produce antibody in cells. The advantage of this is, of course, human antibodies have a great safety profile because it is not an external chemical that you're injecting into the body. And also the second advantage is insight into the human immune response, and it gives us a template for vaccine design. As all of us know, there is this race to produce the vaccine. And President Trump is hopeful that by the end of the year, the vaccine would be produced? Well, all of us will hope for that miracle, but more practically speaking, it looks like that the vaccine will only probably be ready maybe by the middle of next year, according to a lot of experts. But as we all say, prayers can work miracles. So we can always uh, wait to be proved wrong and hope that the vaccine comes in earlier. Okay, these next couple of slides are from Dr. Raymond Forslund, the VP and head of CMC, that is Chemistry, Manufacturing and Controls. Okay, so in chemistry, we deal with basically what is the active ingredient in the drug that is responsible for the healing, for the cure process. Okay, and why is it important? Because it ensures that the product is safe, effective, and consistent between batches. Okay, and therefore it's very important in all drug manufacture to label the batch. So the safety, effectiveness, and consistency is ensured through the chemistry, to understanding and knowledge of the process of manufacturing and through consistent testing. Now, in the production of a vaccine, there is various time phases. Okay, so here you see that in a normal process, the first phase, 20 to 100 subjects would be taken to find that out. And then, of course, you have the phase 2 where 100 to 500 subjects are tested. And phase 3, you have 500 plus subjects. Then it is submitted for the NDA review. And as you see in the diagram, this whole process takes a lot of time. And under ordinary circumstances, it could take as much as 10 to 11 years. But of course, when coronavirus has hit us and when we have an emergency situation, a lot of this has to be confined to a limited time frame. Okay. Now, when we are looking at this limited time frame, we have to be very aware that this limited time frame does not mean that you're allowed to cut corners. Okay, I'm just going to see that slide change. Okay, I think the screen has got stuck. Let me try it again. Okay, so we were here at this screen. So, as you see, all vaccines are considered biologics, okay? And there is a timeline, as I just spoke about, to discover this. Now, as I said, also pandemics increase the urgency, and while more risk is tolerated, safety can never be compromised. Okay, so the manufacturing scale may be quickly increased, and as you're aware, India would be a big hub for scaling up the production of the vaccine. Okay, so here currently they're working on Avigan or Favipiravir, an approved drug in Japan. Okay, and 13 active clinical trials And this was also developed in the US, but unfortunately the funding fell through and therefore it was stuck. So while the drug is available in Japan in limited amounts, okay, for the rest of the world for testing to be done, you can imagine the amount of drug needed would be 3 to 5 metric tons. So therefore, that is a major challenge for so much material to be produced so quickly. And the challenge to manufacture, of course, is costs. The availability of starting materials need to secure at least 20 plus metric tons of diethyl malonate as a starting material. Okay, limited US manufacturers with large enough reactors and availability. So I think this gives you an idea of, first of all, the strength of the virus and the time period, which could be 6 months, which could be 1 year, which could be 2 years, going by the history of the previous viruses. And things can return to normal only when we have the vaccine. And as I've just shown, the vaccine first has to be discovered, then it has to be tested safely, and then it has to be mass produced. So all of this is going to take time. So therefore, it is, as things open up, we have to, whatever locally we can do to prepare ourselves and shield ourselves, that is important. Before I go on to the next part of the psychology, I'd like to offer this song, Side by Side, which in a way gives us hope for the virus ahead. Can you all see the screen?
Classic by Patti Klein, Side by Side, is still relevant for us in today's times of COVID-19. As long as we stick together, help each other out, and stay side by side, we are gonna see this through. Enjoy. Oh, we ain't got a battle of money. Maybe we don't land funny, but we're traveling along, singing this song, side by side. Don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we're traveling along, singing our song, side by side. Through all kinds of weather, what if the sky should fall? As long as we're together, it doesn't matter at all. Oh, we all had the quarrels and parted. We'll be the same as we started, just traveling along, singing our song, side by side. Just traveling along, singing our song, side by side, side by side. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Side by side. Do-do-do-do-do-do. Wait half for troubles and parted. We'll be the same as we started, just traveling along, singing our song, side by side.
Okay. Thank you, Arun, for sharing that. So, as we said, here, we ain't got a barrel of money, but we are traveling along. We don't know what's coming tomorrow. Maybe it's trouble and sorrow, but we travel along singing the song side by side. through all kinds of weather. What if the sky should fall? As long as we are together, does not matter at all. When we've all had their quarrels and parted, we'll be the same as we started, just to travel along, singing a song side by side. The importance of keeping an optimistic frame of mind, to be positive, to be encouraging during this time, because we don't know what's coming ahead, is key to keeping your systems healthy. Because the immune system is what gets affected when we are worried, when we are anxious. And hence, this allows us to graduate to our next section on stress and how the stressors affect our life. So I would like you to, in the chat, quickly list down some of the stressors in your life. If you can go to the chat and list down some of the stressors, and I will put that up here on the screen for all of us to see. Can we get, what are some of the things that stress people out in life today? Okay, very good. So we have fear of the future, school stress, finances, loss of employment, okay, again, relationships problem, boredom, so boredom also can be stressful, meeting deadlines, and the economy, uncertainty, okay, extra housework, okay, and then the need to multitask, okay, no transport available, whether flights or taxis or rickshaws, okay, and health issue, okay, overwork online. While many thought that working from home would be cool and easy, you realize that there is more work from home because you have to look after the kids, you have to also look after your own housework. So working from home can sometimes be a bigger issue. Uncertain future for school and college kids. Okay, good. Thank you for sharing some of the areas which stress us out. Okay, there is much more people have shared than I can fit on this slide. Okay. Okay, now I'm not sure why my screen is not moving to the next slide properly. Okay, so here you see this poor guy and the stress that he is working on. As you can see, this is a little dated because the computer is a very old one, but it still expresses what happens. So working against an inexorably approaching deadline is one example of a stressor, something that upsets our equilibrium or set point and makes our brain initiate what all vertebrates experience, a stress response. Okay, so COVID-19 is producing various stressors and a stress response. So set point depends on circumstances, and if there is one set point, it's referred to as the homeostasis, as you can see there in this diagram. Okay, so on the left side is all the things that we need to keep a balance, to keep calm and cool. So its homeostasis is maintained by nurturing the mind as well as the body. And the body should be healthy and the mind alert and active with a positive attitude. Whereas allostasis is when the set point is variable, so such as blood pressure, When we are climbing a mountain is different, blood pressure at the plains is different. So the stress response in our body seeks to restore the homeostasis. So why are we talking about stress? Why Avatar, and why is that 84 years? So stress has normally gone back to Walter Cannon in around 1936 when he started speaking of stress, but the word stress, of course, was given by Hans Selye much later. So how do we define stress? The non-specific physiological defense reaction. We cannot really pinpoint it. Okay, and it affects three various areas in the body: the adrenocortical centers, the thymus and the lymphus glands, those can atrophy, as well as the intestinal ulcers. All of us are aware that when we are stressed, the stress does not remain only in the head. It shows itself in the body, sometimes through pain in the shoulders, sometimes through lower back pain, and sometimes to stomach issues. So the definition of stress is state manifested by a specific syndrome which consists of all the non-specifically induced changes within a biological system. And because there was always this non-specificity of stress, initially science sort of relegated that area to psychology. Oh, we cannot pinpoint exactly what it is, so we do not bring it into science. The origins, of course, is the fight and flight response. I think all of us have heard that. Our ancestors, when they went out into the jungles to get some food, if they saw a tiger in front of them, then there was two responses. They could either stay there and fight the tiger, or they could try and run as fast away from the tiger. So that was the flight response. But when this response took place, the whole body got prepared for either of these two responses. So a lot of chemicals were released into the body, and during this time you got extra energy and extra force to be able to tackle this stressor that has come into your life. There is a reported incident of a lady whose child went under the wheels of a truck. And as soon as that happened, it was a stationary truck.
Roy, can you speak a little louder? I think the mic here.
Okay, sure. So this lady pushed her elbows into the truck and lifted the truck and rescued the child. And when people came and asked her, how do you do this? She said, I don't know. And they asked her to try it again, and she couldn't. So during stress, the body releases a lot of chemicals which help us to face the stress that we are experiencing. So as I said, it was rejected by physiologists, but adopted by military and industrial settings around the First World War, Second World War. Those involved in psychosomatic medicine and practitioners of alternate medicine. Then in 1970s, stress once again receives the attention of the scientific community. The reason why stress survived in the public domain, in spite of not receiving scientific approval, was because of the deep desire of human beings to find a concept to relate to. So, in 1959, there was a study. So, before that, stress is always, in general, was associated with things outside of us. So the World War I, World War II, the stress of fighting in the battle, in military, etc. But the paradigm shift took place when stress started to be associated not with what is outside of us, but what is inside of us. And therefore, this 1959 study uncovered what is the type A personality. So what is this type A? It is this very active person who is multitasking, rushing about from one place to another, doing a lot of things. I think a lot of us, myself included, could identify to being type A personalities. So the study found out that these type A personalities were most likely to be affected by stress. So you see, stress is now not outside, but it is within us. Then there was a further shift of meaning of this type A personality. So they found out that those who were alone for long periods of time also were likely to be more stressed out. Okay, and someone has already mentioned boredom today. So loneliness was taken to be something that caused stress. A little later down, anger was another aspect that was responsible for stress and affecting of the immune system. So you see how stress keeps on changing, and therefore I use the word avatar. Stress is taking on outside, then it's coming inside the person, it's taking on a type A personality and a lonely personality and anger personality. Then there was a watershed point where Mr. Stress moves from cardiovascular system, that means the heart gets the stress and the heart is responsible for all that, to the immune system. Now it's important to realize that the immune system was thought to be autonomous till that point in time, that nothing could affect our immune system. So, but what we realized was, yes, the immune system is being affected by stress, both external stressors and stressors that we ourselves place on ourselves. And so the whole discipline of psychoneuroimmunology emerges. So stress research then moved from purely cardiovascular heart disease to AIDS patients, to cancer patients, to Gulf War veterans, and caregivers of Alzheimer's disease. So very often caregivers, and many of you may be in the position of caring for an aged parent or an aged sibling, or maybe a child who needs extra attention. So caregivers is another category who need to monitor their stress levels. So we see the king of stress, okay, he not only did not die away, but he was also added to his kingdom immunology and epidemiology to his existing cardiovascular. So we see how stress is moving through various dimensions. And now coming to our century, the 21st century, stress is all about neuroplasticity, neurotrophic factors, and intercellular signaling cascade. So it's gone now to the brain. So in all this, we see that stress has a physiological impact on us. Stress is not only in the mind. For a lot of times, we would say, oh, it's in the mind. Or if it's in the mind, sometimes even migraine headaches, etc. And people would say, or when you're anxious or when you're nervous, okay, children were told to suck it up or be brave. Boys don't cry. And it was believed to be something only in the mind. It doesn't have an effect on the body. But today we know that is not true. Whatever thoughts are going on in our mind, the anxieties that are going on in our mind have an effect on the body in some way or the other. Sometimes this effect can be for a long period of time, and that is chronic stress. Or sometimes it could be just a situation that has happened, okay, and you're stressed out, and the stress is called acute stress. It is for a shorter period of time. Now, when we are talking of COVID-19, as I explained earlier, we have to be prepared for maybe a long period of time of uncertainty. We don't know. Is it going to end? Is there a vaccine going to come about? So all this is going to cause stress on our system. And we need to be aware of it. And we need to realize that it will have an effect on the body. So how do we change that? And what is it that we change in the mind in order to allow us to be less stressful? A lot of these answers to these questions will be done in tomorrow's session when we learn how to protect ourselves from the stressful factors that we are experiencing. What are some of the things that we need to do? Okay, what are some of the mind changes that need to be brought about so that we can not totally eliminate stress? We can't do that. And in fact, some amount of stress is helpful. All of us know that little stress before an exam or a presentation or going on stage helps us to be able to function better. At the same time, we know that if the nervousness, if the anxiety goes to too much, then it can also inhibit us and debilitate us. So stress in a small amount is good, but when it carries on, either when it's too acute or when it carries on for a long time, then that stress is going to start creating problems in our body. And let us again go back to our ancestors of old. I mentioned caveman went out to get some food and then he saw the tiger and he managed, thank God, he managed to escape from the tiger. He came back into his cave and he was breathing deeply and he rested. And then all the chemicals that were released in the body during that time slowly were able to get washed out. So all of the cortisol that was formed was able to get washed out because he didn't have to go out to hunt for maybe another 2 weeks. So there was a downtime, and whatever stress chemicals were released were able to be cleansed by the body. The body had a time for recuperation, for getting back to normal. Now let us fast forward to the 21st century. So we are faced with some stress as soon as we get up in the morning. You're rushing to catch a train. You're fighting with the auto fellow. You are maybe fighting to get a place on the train, or you're in a car jam and people are overtaking you. So all this is building stress. You reach the office and the secretary says the boss wants to see you. That provides a further stress. You go through a very stressful day. You come home and then there's the stress of what has been left at home, either the children or your spouse or something or the other, and you have to face that stress. And then you will say, okay, this much stress even the caveman faced. And so for the next 2 weeks, I'm going to lie down. But no, you cannot lie down for 2 weeks. You have to get up the next morning and face the same amount of stress. So what is happening? We are constantly being onslaughted by stress, and we do not have sufficient downtime to let that get dissolved, let that go. The body is not getting time to recover, to recuperate. And that is where we have a lot of the lifestyle diseases coming down the line, whether it's blood pressure, whether it's diabetes, whether it is your arthritis, etc., and pains all over. So the body is not allowed to heal and not allowed to recover because stress is now become 24/7. So it's important as we go ahead in the year, in the months and years ahead, when we are still faced with corona, we also have to know that this is going to be part of our existence, part of our everyday life. And therefore, how do we tackle it? I also raised the question earlier of how do we prepare for that? Okay, so many of you may be planning maybe a trip somewhere, you want to organize some conference, you're not sure, is this going to COVID-19 still be there? How do I plan for the next 6 months, 8 months, etc.? So already some universities, Creighton University itself, is starting their semester a little earlier in August, and they are not going to carry on till December. They're going to end around the end of November, Thanksgiving time. And why is that? Because the next onslaught or outbreak of COVID-19 virus is expected around December time. So many universities are planning to shift the semester so that the students can go home already at the end of November. So this is some of the planning that one needs to do in your own life to see some of the big events, some of the travel events that you have to do. Make sure you don't place it at a time when there's going to be a second major outbreak. I know in places like Mumbai, Pune, the outbreak is still on and it's not reached its first peak. But in other places, it's going to be, it's already sort of petered off and lessened. And so things are opening out. Now, when things open out, the shops open out, you go out, you're going to be meeting people. Please note, it is important to keep all the things that we were doing in terms of 6 feet distance, wearing a mask, washing our hands, carrying sanitizer, because that will prevent you from, in a certain extent, from getting the virus. Again, for some, you may get the virus, but you may be asymptomatic. And today's factors show that nearly 35% of the population is asymptomatic. Then again, you may get the virus and you may show only mild symptoms. And about, in the active cases shown in the world, about maybe 98% would be mild cases. Okay, 2% would be serious or critical cases. And then once you could either get it, you could get mild symptoms, or of course you could be seriously ill. So the question that many are asking is, how is that some people are getting it and not showing any symptoms? Some people are not getting it. Okay, some people are getting it and showing big symptoms. Is there anything that one can do? Or why is there this difference? A virus is a virus after all. Okay, why should there be so much difference? And why are some more susceptible to the others? So a lot of these questions then we will be tackling tomorrow. And I would like to now, in the last few minutes that I have before our 45 minutes ends, offer you another song, which is titled The Challenge. So, and again, this relates to the whole COVID-19, what we are going through. Broken bodies, lives destroyed, but unbroken in spirit. Okay, so whether it was the migrant workers who are walking back, whether it is you and me who are trying to keep up our spirit alive. Humanity gone, justice crushed. Again, the migrant workers come to the mind, the poor. Okay, we are talking about safe distance, we're talking about social distancing, but how do the poor in the slums, where there are 10 people staying in a little small house, how do they do all that? So in all these things, whether it be a virus, whether it be a man-made disaster, or whether it be a natural disaster, the poor bear the brunt of it all. And the chorus of the song goes, Lord, our earth longs for healing. Lord, the world needs your love. To face the challenge, disturb the rich and comfort all the poor. So disturb the rich, those who are complacent and thinking like, you know, I'm in my apartment, I'm observing social distance. Why are those people they're not observing? Why are they coming out of their slums? Why are they walking on the streets? I think we need to be disturbed also to realize what is happening on the other side of the fence. So that is the chorus. Lord, our earth longs for healing. Lord, the world needs your love. To face the challenge, disturb the rich and comfort all the poor. Second verse, liberation, we all need it. We all want to be free. We all want this COVID virus to go off. Freedom from enslavement. We are enslaved by this virus. We are locked up. But we are also enslaved by a lot of other things. We are enslaved by our own frustrations, our own anger, our own unfairness of the situation. People are enslaved. Sometimes we've heard about cases of domestic violence increasing. So they are enslaved by their alcohol, they are enslaved by drugs, some others may not be enslaved by this, but they are enslaved by money, fame, power. And all this enslavement, we ask for freedom. Then freedom for the kingdom of God. So when we ask for freedom from something, the freedom has to always be directed towards for something. Okay, so this freedom for living a fulfilling life, a life that is meaningful, a life that is lived in caring for others. And I must say, what has touched me has been the outpouring of generosity from a lot of people, from all of you. Okay, so institutions, whether it be Hindu temples, Muslim mosques, Catholic churches, they are opening out their places for sheltering the migrants. They are offering food. Different places, food is being shared, sometimes individually, sometimes in groups. So truly, the freedom is for something. And we realize more and more that when we are living our lives for others, that's when we find true happiness. And then the last verse, I want justice, not sacrifice. Okay, so it's when we lend out these handouts to the poor, etc., we realize that it's not really doing sort of just giving dan, but it is a justice issue. This is part of their share when we share our wealth. Not burnt offerings, nor gifts, but repentant hearts, contrite souls, a spirit that is free. Let us pray for this for all of us. Okay, I will now play the song.
Broken bodies, lives destroyed, but unbroken in spirit, humanity gone, justice crushed, the poor bear the brunt of it all. Lord, our earth longs for healing, Lord, the world needs your love to face the challenge, disturb the rich and comfort all the poor. Broken bodies, lives destroyed, but unbroken in spirit, humanity gone, justice crushed, the poor bear the brunt of it all. Lord, our earth longs for healing, Lord, the world needs your love to face the challenge, disturb the rich and comfort all the poor. Liberation, the world needs it. We all need to be freed. Freedom from enslavement, freedom for the kingdom of God. Lord, our earth longs for healing. Lord, the world needs your love to face the challenge, disturb the rich and comfort all the poor. I want justice, not sacrifice, not burnt offerings, nor gifts, repentant hearts, contrite souls, a spirit that is free. Lord, our earth longs for healing, Lord, the world needs your love to face the challenge, disturb the rich and comfort all the poor. Lord, our earth longs for healing, Lord, the world needs your love to face the challenge, disturb hands, disturb the rich and comfort all the poor.
Okay. Let us now take a few questions that have come up. And you can keep posting your questions. If I don't get time to answer all the questions today, I will take up some of them tomorrow. Also, if there any other aspects that I've not mentioned regarding tomorrow's talk that you'd like me to cover, please mention that. Okay, so the question asked is, what are the recent updates on the vaccine prepared by Japan? And what is the response of patients? So see, there are a couple of treatments being tried all over. As you know, the famous one, the chloroquine, the malarial drug, is being tried. The Japanese vaccine was approved for some other thing, and they're trying that for now COVID-19. Now, all of us know that thousands of people are getting healed, and in different places, different things are being tried. But in order to make that a solid scientific data, there are a lot of trials that have to go through. And so that is taking place. Another common drug that is being tried is remdesivir. Now, remdesivir was used for HIV patients, and it is also being tried to some amount of success also for COVID-19. So this is all still in the making, and lots of testing, as I said, has to be done regarding the curative aspect. The vaccine is one thing, how to prevent a thing, but even the drugs that are needed for this have not yet been sort of locked down, that this is can fix all the different ways in which COVID-19. So again, initially how it was playing out was one way. Now suddenly, as you know, a lot of children are showing symptoms of skin diseases, etc. So the vaccine itself, in a way, the virus itself seems to be sort of what we call mutating or going through different phases and how it affects people. Okay, then someone says, hopefully travel can be planned. Okay. Are policies to create a vaccine discussed in today's talk applicable universally? Okay, so I think this is the first time that the whole world is working together. Okay, as soon as China released the whole DNA sequence, etc., everyone started working on the virus, etc. So that is being done all over the world. Regarding policies of how this plays out, as you know, each country is independent and these would be played out differently. As you know, even within a country, there's always conflict about even a simple thing like a vaccine. Some people say, no, the vaccine, I'm not going to take a vaccine, I'm not going to do this, I'm not going to do that. So these policies, I think, would vary, but we have the World Health Organization, the universal body, which sets sort of standards for all, and hopefully they will also be giving us guidelines for universal applicability. Whether countries follow that or not, that is up to the countries, etc. Okay. So what can we do to improve our immunity? So that's I'm going to definitely talk about tomorrow. You know, some of the factors that we would need to do to improve our immunity. Okay, so someone has said, is this vaccine for cure or for prevention? So vaccines always for prevention, okay? That means you do not show, even if you get the virus, you will not show the symptoms to its full extent. So we are talking about prevention. And of course, as I said, the other thing is we need cures also. Okay, then what else? Okay, this is a good question. Once a person gets COVID and heals, Are there chances of getting again? So just in the last 2 days or something, I heard that there are now sufficient. So initially, in general, when you get an illness, the body develops antibodies, okay, and that prevents you from getting the illness again. How long do those antibodies last? Sometimes 4 years, 5 years, sometimes even 20 years. But with COVID, people were not sure. But now more and more, so what I read recently, there is something come out that yes, there is a high percentage of that. If you get COVID and you heal yourself, then after that, you're not likely to get it. And of course, that's good news. So this is the whole thing of what we call herd immunity. When a sufficient number of people have contracted the virus, they have healed, and then they've gone back into the system, then that virus no longer will attack them. And so we are hopeful for that. Okay. Okay, how to be positive during the pandemic, that also we'll tackle tomorrow. Now, there's one more question about Bangladesh claims they have a drug which is a copy of the US drug. Is this possible? Now, a lot of nations develop what is called generic drugs, and India, Bangladesh, and all are in the forefront of that. So sometimes a drug which is manufactured and very expensive in a first world country, that license is given to another country to produce that at the mass level and allowed to be sold only in that country. Now, thanks to this, and again, the whole question is about the product or the process patent. But a lot of countries have been fighting that you cannot restrict the drug to only a rich country and only those who can pay for it. And I think many countries, India especially, has been in the forefront of creating generic drugs which have been upscaled and prepared at a large level and cheaply available. So especially with regard to HIV, and therefore a lot of drugs from India are exported to Africa to prevent the HIV virus and to allow healing for a lot of peoples. But again, as many know, this is a big debatable issue. So possibly Bangladesh is preparing that drug. I'm not sure about that. Then the other question, I think maybe this is the last question we'll take up, is it proved that stress has physical, what's this question, that stress, or is it still speculation? I think, again, if you look at evidence-based medicine and how this is played out, there would still be some cynics who are what we call totally physicalist and say that, you know, what is happening in the mind is not there. But I think the large number of the medical community would hold that stress does have an effect. And the proof sometimes comes more now in this latest field of neuroscience, where when you're looking at images of the brain, and there you can see a clear picture of how the neurons which have undergone stress are different from those which are not stressful. So if that is taken as a proof, so that could be one of the proofs that could be given in terms of how stress is played out. Okay. Okay. So then maybe just last question, is arsenic alb homeopathy tablet used as immune booster against COVID-19? So I don't think anyone can answer that question, but I would say whatever homeopathy is offering for increasing your immunity, I think just take that and let's hope that it would help you. So anything that you already do to improve your immunity would be a help to prevent you from getting COVID-19. Okay, so we've got just 2 minutes left. I'd once again like to summarize today what we've done. So basically, we've covered some of the history of epidemiology and how diseases spread, how viruses spread. We look back to the timeline that they spread over a couple of years, and then we say maybe we are in for the long haul, or maybe miraculously it can end quickly. So that was the various Ebola, chikungunya viruses, etc., that we covered and this period and how those played about. So that also would then give us time in looking at our own trajectory for the current coronavirus. Then we moved on to, of course, the next part where we were looking at the whole, how is it that stress plays a role on our life and how stress has taken different forms and therefore the non-specific physiological reaction. Okay, so therefore the reaction is definitely there and proven, but that the connection, it's more at a point of time, the correlation that can be made. Okay, and we cannot boil down to cause and effect, and that also I will touch upon tomorrow. So we looked at various ways in which stress took, first of all, it was external, and then it became internal, and then finally it moved into anger, type A personality, a lone person, it moved into cancer, it moved into HIV. So there was cardiovascular kingdom, there was the immunology kingdom, as well as there was I'm blanking on the third. So all these kingdoms were taken by stress. And so therefore, as we move towards the end of this thing, it is going to be we are going to be living with stress. We have to realize what we can do to prevent our immune system and how we can live with stress without letting it affect us. So for tomorrow, some of the topics that we'll do will be how to build your immunity. We'll do some of the medicinal aspects also, and touch upon also some more of the psychological aspects, and to see how we mark out the road ahead for us so that we can be assured that even if we do get it, we're not going to worry because a lot of people have been healed, and we're not going to let worry play a role in our lives. Thank you very much to the organizers, and I'll give the mic over to Arun.
Thank you, Dr. Roy, for that informative session, which I'm sure all of you would have enjoyed, and you would take it into your own lives and share with others too. First of all, I apologize slightly for some issues with regard to the link, with regard to the sound and things like that. I'm not sure why it happened. It's the interface between Zoom and YouTube which has created some issues. I hope that we would be able to settle before tomorrow. So good evening, good night. See you tomorrow.